Hi, I'm Rachel Alexandria Arnold, and I play Rachel Alexandria Arnold for Stab 2. So my character's a little different in Stab 2 than we've seen in the past. She separated herself from Joshua. She's a best-selling author. She sold rights of her book to Lifetime for a Lifetime movie that's been made. She's employed both Sherry and Ashley, and she's going on a national book tour. So Rachel separated herself from Joshua in this book because she received a letter that basically not insinuated, but fully called out that Joshua was using someone's real life trauma for his movies. And so this upset her because Rachel is very empathetic, as you've seen in films before, and she just felt like everything was fraudulent. And so she based it all off of this. She made she believed what she saw. She made her book, and just kind of moved forward without Joshua. Later, obviously, we realized that the letter was forged, and you get to watch that transition back from feeling like everything was a lie to kind of mending that relationship with Joshua. I would say that this representation of my character is probably the closest to myself that it's been. Because it really it's not because I'm, this best-selling author, but just because I'm a real human. I feel like there's less pretense. There's not, the struggle back and forth of, who's in charge, or, there's not that duo anymore. It's broken up, and you just kind of get to see Rachel by herself and how she kind of handles the world when she's not part of that duo that she has been before. My favorite part of filming this movie, I would say, was how great the schedule was. This is the first time that we really were kind of forced to kind of condense filming. And so I had a total of 4.5 days of filming, which is very unusual for any movie, let alone one of ours. And so that was awesome. It really allowed me to kind of focus day by day on what lines I had to do and work on the character for those individual scenes, which for my ADHD brain was fantastic. I also really liked that this was the first time I had been in a movie for a while for a hefty part. Just life had not allowed me to in a couple of years between COVID and health issues. So it was nice to be acting with people again. And working with the cast was great. I love the cast. So those are my favorite parts of filming. We tend to shoot in not the greatest weather, just because we have to have enough time to edit. And so this film was filmed in July and August, and it was so hot. Things that people don't think about when you film is that you really have to reduce your noise. So any fans or ACs, those all have to be turned off for the most part. Josh did make some sacrifices for us in the truly ungodly heat, which was nice of him. But that just usually means you're just baking while you're filming, on top of all the lights, of course. The other thing that wasn't great about filming was we filmed an outdoor scene at night, and we were just about, I would say, 3/4 of the way done. And the external lighting that we were kind of relying on shut off. We weren't aware that it was a timed setting. So we had to kind of restart all over again. So those are probably my two least favorite parts. So when I first got the script, I decided that the best way for me to do this was to kind of read through from front to end once. And so that's what I did. I read everything. I read all of the action notes, all of the scene notes, along with everybody else's line, and kind of read it like a book from front to back. And then I told myself I wasn't going to pick it up again until I needed to learn my lines. And I learned them basically the week before each filming day. I would run the lines with myself. I had recorded them in my own voice, everybody else's lines except for mine, and that's kind of how I learned them. And that worked really well for me. I don't typically have an issue with learning lines, but I knew that with condensed filming, it meant that we were going to have to be so much more efficient. And since Josh was nice enough to condense filming for us, I wanted to make sure I was on my game. So that's kind of how I took the script, how I read it. And I also decided I wasn't going to read too much into it. I felt like this movie, this character really was supposed to be more represented, or most representative of myself. And so I just played it how I would say things. I would read it how I would react. surprisingly, that worked pretty well. I didn't get a ton of direction, which was nice, and it paid off. So I, for the most part, kept to the script. I am the queen of ad-lib. There are some points where I may have forgotten like a line or a word in a line, but for the most part, I kept it pretty close to the script. This was the first time that, even though I had been, you know, a part of production for a movie within a movie for the films, this is the first time that I was legitimately in a movie within a movie. And you'll see that in the Lifetime scenes. I got to film with an out-of-stater, Dalen, who was wonderful to work with. That was the very first scene that I filmed, which was kind of nice because it allowed me to be super over the top and just cheesy like you would expect watching a Lifetime movie. The second day of filming, second and third days actually, kind of went from 0 to 100. Day 2 and day 3 of filming were straight to the hotel. So that was both with Sherry and Ashley. The hotel had the worst air conditioning ever. Weird things happened at the hotel just in general, not so much with filming, but just the set itself. We filmed in a real hotel that's in Manchester. It's a pretty nice hotel. The AC wasn't working, well, at least. And it was so bad that Josh actually let us film with the AC on because it was better than nothing, but it still wasn't great. What was neat about filming, at least in the hotel, is that we ran the script in order. That's how we filmed things. So we went, you know, you see me coming back from the book signing and kind of realizing the book signing I was just at was in Manchester, even though I had sworn never to be in Manchester. My assistants, I would say my assistants, because we don't really know what Sherry's title is. She keeps changing it. But my staff basically tricked me for publicity to come back to Manchester. And that's kind of what starts the whole thing for me. I realize I'm not where I want to be, and then I start seeing stuff happen. Then we move to Erica coming and basically talking to me. Erica's, you know, an actress from the Lifetime movie. She's coming to talk to me because she hasn't found any information about, you know, this character that's supposed to be real. And she just feels like, to be true to herself, she needs to bring it up to me, and she also is not sure she wants to be in the next movie. And so we kind of have that discussion where I'm like, you know, take your time, we can think about it, but at the same time, I know that the only proof I went off of for this book is that letter. And so I'm basically forcing myself to be confident to her that, yes, I did my research, don't worry about it, everything's fine, but in the back of my head, I'm starting to wonder if I've made a mistake at this point. So the next scene that we filmed was my phone call, and this was the first time that I had sort of an elaborate phone call. I've received phone calls in prior films from the killer, but they were sort of me already taking them very seriously, and this one very much was not serious at first. I think just because, you know, with the Lifetime movie and the rise of the book, I kind of had almost swapped places with Josh's character, where he was kind of used to that sort of fame and those types of fans. And so even though I may not have known it, I didn't really take it seriously. It was challenging because there was a lot to do in one full, you know, cut. We couldn't break it up. It had to be done in one take. Luckily, the way that I had run the script and learned it, it was okay. A few mess ups here and there, but not too bad. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was probably my most serious acting in the film, where like I really had to think about how I would react to that situation. As hectic as the hotel was, there were definitely a lot of funny moments. Every actor has one scene or one set of lines where they just can't get them down. Either it's just they're having a hard time relating to the way it's worded, and so they're not understanding how to memorize them, or maybe it's just a lot, like my phone call is a lot, you know, very voluminous lines for one section. That happened to Erica in the hotel. And I don't know if Josh has it. I'm sure he does. We always film these things, but there's just back to back to back attempts of her trying to do her lines and her getting upset with herself, just swearing because she can't do them. Funny for everyone else, probably funny for her now, not funny for her at the time, I think. Also, I never realized how difficult it was just to walk in a door, and you'll see probably lots of bloopers from that, because from the three of us entering after the book signing to Ashley and Cherry trying to come in after my phone call, there's got to be tons of footage of us just messing up, either not hearing the direction or laughing because we don't understand that we can still be heard behind the door. It just, how many idiots does it take to walk through a door? There's this inside joke that I can't make it through a single movie without driving in my car. And this, of course, is no different, although this time it wasn't my car. And typically when I'm driving, I am physically driving, and the shot is of me physically driving. This time is very stationary, not in my own car. And Josh actually took a flashlight and moved it around so it looked like streetlights were moving by us, which was genius. So this was a little different. I would love to say that it was easier to deliver lines when you're not physically driving, but I don't know that it was. I think it was more challenging because it was more foreign. It's not something you would typically do, is, have a car conversation when you're not actually moving. So that was interesting. It also was in a car that was not my own, so it was not as comfortable to me because it wasn't as familiar. Yeah, we had to ADR every single one of those lines because you film from outside of the car, of course, and you can't hear any of it. The next thing that we filmed was in the parking lot of the production studio. That was probably the lowest point in filming, just because it was so hot. We were outside in the dark. It was humid. There were a ton of bugs. And so we really were just trying to keep our composure and deal with that and act like it wasn't happening. I would love to say that we did it gracefully. I'm not sure that we did, though. And this was a moving scene, so the entire group had to walk while delivering lines, which is always challenging, but especially for us. And then to top everything off, aside from the humidity and the bugs and the heat and, needing to walk and deliver lines and know where the camera was at all time and where you should be directing your comments to as you're walking, we had been filming at a location that had exterior lights. And what we weren't aware of is that the exterior lights were on a timer. And so we got through about 3/4 of the scene and the lights shut off. And most people would think that that's fine. You just set up an artificial light and you move on, but that's not how this works, because you can very obviously tell the difference between, film lights and exterior lighting. And so we needed to basically start from the beginning with the lighting that we had. It was challenging to even rig the lighting because it was something we weren't really prepared for. We had the lights, we always bring the lights, but it's not something that we had thought about, where are we going to put the lights? So the whole thing was very interesting. We managed to get it done. I don't even think we were there for like 3 hours. But it definitely was frustrating because we felt like we were finally getting the flow of things and then the lights shut off. But we made it work. We always make it work. The very last thing I filmed was the ending, because we went in order as I stated, and that was not only the longest day of filming, but the most fun for me. I'm not sure everybody would agree with that, but I had the most fun. It was 1,000,000 degrees inside of Joshua's apartment, but he, made the decision to keep the fans and the ACs on, just, for our own safety. So I don't want to hear anybody say anything about the audio in those scenes, please. It was for our own good. We were going to die. But this was the first time that I died in a movie or in a stab movie, and I had so much fun with it. Not only was it the first time that I died in a stab movie, but it's the first time that I got to really fuck some people up. So I got to use a chainsaw in this movie, which was great, and I really enjoyed working and feeding off of Henry's energy. I don't know. I can't remember the point where in my head I was like, this is something that I'm going to do. I made the conscious decision to look at the chainsaw and scream, and then look at Henry, and Henry screamed back at me, and then I looked, we kept looking down and back, and it was so funny when we were filming it that I hope it translates in the movie for you, because we had to cut a few times because we just were laughing hysterically. We got started and couldn't stop. I had used a chainsaw before, but never like this, and I think, one of the lessons we learned from the chainsaw in Theta is, in order to make it look more realistic, is to kind of handle the blood on set and remove as many special effects as you can to make it look more realistic. And There was a lot of blood. You know, in Stab 6, we really went all out at the end and I smeared blood all over myself. This was far worse than that. But more fun. The blood was cold, which was nice because it was so hot. But literally when I was doing that take, everybody else that wasn't in the scene had cups of blood and they were just taking handfuls and just splattering them at me. And so what you're seeing with the blood hitting me, of course, is not really from the chainsaw, but from, you know, Ashley and Erica just throwing blood at me. And I just remember this was the first time I was filming the movie in my contacts, and I'm like, oh my God, if it gets stuck under my contact, I'm gonna have an issue. We're not gonna be able to film. And to clarify, I'm not a priss about blood. Fully willing to go the extra mile and get it all over me. I just was like, we've been here so long already. If I can't film because I can't see, like, it's gonna shut this down. And I just remember worrying about that, but it worked out and I was able to get fully drenched in blood. Watching Josh get brains flicked on him too, made out of Jello, was probably the grossest thing I've ever partaken in, but it was awesome. And I hope that it looks as great on film as it did in person. What I really enjoyed about this too was it was the first time that I got to take part in sort of like a Home Alone style montage. It was the first time that the entire cast was sort of working together, the entire remaining cast was working together to basically set up to take down the killer. And so it was a lot of fun to do that and, you know, take part in hiding weapons and hanging paint cans and all of that. So it was really cool to booby trap the house. It was the first time that I was going to have to be, you know, shot, which was interesting. I remember being so nervous about, you know, how am I realistically gonna fall if I get shot? I don't want to look stupid. I've never done this before. And I just kind of went for it. And so I hope you enjoy that.
And fucking nailed it.
I just remember like looking at the couch and being like, here we go.
Here comes Rachel.
So overall, I would say that Stab 2 was probably the most fun I've had on a Stab movie. I really got to focus on the character. I was mainly acting. I helped a little bit offset, but or behind the scenes, but mostly this was just about, you know, filming for my character. That was really my participation in this movie. It was just a really great experience. Sorry that I finally die in this movie. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry for those who will be upset about it. But I really hope you enjoy it. I know that this is probably one of Josh's favorite to write. It was definitely my favorite to act in. So yeah, I just really hope you enjoy.